Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the MC Events podcast. This is episode 7. As always, I am your host, Joey Capollo, joined by Gilan, and today we have our special guest, Maya, or LukynkaCZE.
Hello. Glad to be here.
Maya is joining us as the lead developer of Block Wars. As you know, I, Joey, am in charge and owner of Block Wars, and Gilan is a
developer. Hi, I'm a developer. I'm important.
This is going to be a very heavy development episode to figure out what it takes to develop, custom minigames into Minecraft, what it takes to make those minigames into an overall event format, and what it takes to make them fun and exciting and functional, which, at the end of the day is the bare minimum you have to get to.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for joining us, Maya. If you could introduce yourself and who you are.
So, hello, I'm Maya. I'm the lead developer of Block Wars currently. I've been programming for over 6 years. I contribute sometimes to like OSU and stuff.
All right, Gilan, this is in your wheelhouse of expertise. So start explaining to me and the audience plugins, how you make them, what they're for, what the purpose of them is.
Yeah. Maya, you're free to chime in as I'm kind of explaining this stuff, especially if I say something wrong and you're like, or want to add extra things. The basic idea when we're talking about a plugin, it's very different than a mod. When you're talking about mods in Minecraft, you're talking about like editing the code of Minecraft, whether like injecting stuff in and like changing the actual like client-side Minecraft launcher. That's why you have to download mods. You have to download actual files. Plugins are kind of this weird thing because a lot of games don't really have them. And the basic idea is you can call it like packet manipulation. So you send data to the server saying, hey, I moved, or hey, I punched, and the server sends back what all the other players are doing. And that's, how multiplayer works everywhere, no matter what video game you're doing. So the idea of plugins is like, okay, what if instead of, the player punching and Minecraft, as the base game saying, okay, did they hit someone? Did they like hit something? What if you instead have code on the server that say, hey, if this player punches and they're like in a certain area, run this code instead, like change the behavior. And that's kind of how a lot of these plugins work. Like the reason that when you're on Hypixel, if you're holding the compass in the main lobby and you right click, it opens a menu, is because Hypixel has code like running server side that when you send a packet saying, hi, I'm holding the compass and I just right clicked, it sends something back that says, hey, open up this menu that shows all the games. So I think that's a pretty basic idea of what plugins are. Do you have anything to add to that, Maya?
Yeah, you got it about right.
Okay, so a lot of people, when writing plugins for Minecraft, they write it in Java as a programming language or Kotlin. Kotlin just kind of being, you can call it the newer Java, where it's kind of a bit, it's more of a cleaner. It's more modern. If you want to add on to that,
it was built as kind of replacement for Java, or just like better Java.
Yeah, because Java is in terms of, modern age, it's a pretty old language. I think it's from the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
And
it is pretty old. A lot of people call Java instant legacy code, which is funny.
But because we're specifically talking about, you work on, we should also mention script. So I don't know, I'm going to let you actually explain what script is, because you...
Yeah, so script is obviously it's not a language, but instead of Java Kotlin, you must like compile the plugin into a jar file and upload it as a plugin to server. Script is already a plugin. You can basically write these script files, which is like, I guess it is just code. Script has its own syntax. It doesn't compile. It's just in time compilation. So the script plugin basically reads over the script file and does stuff. That's kind of wrapped around the Spigot Bucket API.
Yeah, and I know that script can it almost seems like this middle ground between like plugins and like data packs, where it's much more like script is meant for Minecraft. Like you can't just like, you're not going to be like applying for a job at like a tech company and say, hey, I know script. Like that isn't really like a thing, because it's Minecraft's focus. And if you read it, you'll notice that it's like specifically made for Minecraft. Like all the words are kind of made and designed for Minecraft. The idea is that there's basically Java code in the background that's actually running the script plugin on your server, and you're running scripts through that, and it's kind of handling all the actual like packet stuff, and you can write this much simpler, like I guess closer to English code, where it's like it seems more like a spoken
it's
language.
inspired by Python.
Mhm.
It's kind of similar to Python syntax with the indent and stuff.
And we'll probably go back to talking about script later when we're specifically talking about block wars in a bit. But I did want to bring up, you mentioned, bucket, paper, spigot,
Mhm.
those kinds of things. For people who know code in general, you'll probably know the term libraries, the idea of like people have already written code and you can access that and use it, and it much makes it your job simpler. And that's basically what, bucket, spigot, paper are. They are server software. They help run the server, but also they allow you to basically say like, hey, get all the players online, or hey, get all this stuff, and you don't have to like get really deep down and be intercepting packets yourself and like managing all that stuff. They kind of handle that for you, and it means that you can write code quicker.
Yep.
Mhm.
It is basically abstraction above
Mhm,
packets.
it's abstraction. Yeah. Anyway, so we can move on to specifically talking about block wars now. We talked about script earlier because I believe block wars is
Running script. Yep.
running script. It's mostly script, right? So
Yes.
how has that been? Why did you choose that?
So back in the day, Block Warriors, like before All Stars, before Origins 10, it before Origins 11, it used to be a data pack event, which was written by Tommy and Lizard. But we kind of, after All Stars, everyone got together and kind of wanted to rework the event, kind of just generally make it better, And one step was migrating from data packs, because as much as it was painful to rewrite the event, Tommy and Lizard, us at the time, just didn't have time to really work on it. And I know some basics of data packs, but I probably want to be able to create, working event games and stuff. And we were like thinking about rewriting it in Java, Kotlin, whatever. And we decided for script because, well, either Tommy or Lizard didn't know script back then, but script is pretty easy to pick up if you know programming already, which both of them did. So we were like, yeah, let's go with script because that's easier to learn than, Java or Kotlin from scratch. And also script has the benefit of you don't have to compile and then like reload the plugin, restart the server every time. You can write these script files and then just do script reload and it will reload the code.
Yeah, I know during tests sometimes if we need to make a really quick change, you can very
We
easily
do that a lot.
like change stuff, especially for like points and testing where you really quickly want to change data like that.
Yeah.
Um,
That's really useful.
So, a lot of people right now, if they're, not programmers right now and they're wanting to get into it, they might look at script as like, oh, why would I even learn Java or Kotlin if I can just use script? So what are the downsides of script? What have you kind of seen as the limits of script?
Yeah, it's another abstraction on top of Bucket API or Spigot. So it's obviously less performant than, native Java or Kotlin code would be. Well, Kotlin's basically Java. It compiles into Java. But yeah, it's another abstraction layer which adds just performance. And it can be janky sometimes. It's loosely typed language, so basically JavaScript. It doesn't really have types. Internally it kind of does, but to the user it kind of doesn't. So that can be janky sometimes. There's some weird bugs that script has, weird quirks that can be annoying, but we have custom fork of script and it can patch some stuff we don't want, fix some stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I do think it's important to mention that, especially when we're looking at block wars, it's a big event that has a lot of creators and you're trying to make sure that it's not, failing, it's running all the time. Because of course block wars has knowledgeable developers, you are able to kind of make your own, have your own version of script to fix stuff, because you don't always just want to rely on like, I hope the script developers fix these problems before we run the event. Yeah, it's very important.
What was that process like when updating from, the data pack event to entirely script? Was it easy to kind of take what was already made and just have to find the new ways of writing it?
No, because we kind of rework the entire event as well. We changed games and stuff to be more enjoyable. So we redid most of the games, most of the maps were redone. Actually, all of them, all of the builds were redone by Donut.
Mhm.
But it yeah, no, it took like we thought when starting to rewrite we would be done in like April, but we were done in June. So it took like 6 months to rewrite the entire event. But I wouldn't say it was painful, because I enjoy writing all the core frameworks and stuff, which was a big part. But it definitely took long.
Yeah, that's a long while to be just coding away on it.
Mm-hmm.
What part was the easiest to develop?
Yes, probably the games themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Because all of the complicated coding was handled at the framework level, right?
Yeah, I
So
mean,
like,
I've noticed in my own projects that a lot of times once you get to the actual game, it's very easy to be like, oh, the game has to do this, so I write this code. But then
yeah,
like as you
we
work,
are,
as I'm working on the utility stuff in the background, I'm like having to like think about like all the games are going to use this. How does it fit in?
yeah,
It's like you're managing
definitely.
all these things, and that's where that's the hard part of programming, like all the planning out how it's all going to fit
Playing out,
together.
and the actual implementation is pretty
Hmm.
simple because the framework already provides you with like events like
Hmm.
um prepare on prepare round, on end round, on start round,
Hmm.
on game start.
Yeah, because
So
a lot of
um,
game programming, once you have the games, a lot of it's just listening for player events and doing something according to it.
yeah,
But the framework is a lot of times managing, data and all this stuff, and you're trying to manage this flow and like figuring out like, okay, what do the games need to be provided with to know what's happening, and that's where it gets annoying. Anyway, what were you
yeah,
saying, Joe?
So the framework stuff is everything that's not like the gameplay. So it's everything
hmm
like sets up teams and round start, moving people between games.
yeah.
So
Mhm.
what else is what else do I not know is there that's probably really important?
The game framework is definitely important. The event state is also
Mm.
like an important part. Event state is basically it tells the event what state the event is in. So that could be like hub or game tutorial, which is an yarn tutorial, game prepare, game round prepare, which is um when the round's preparing and you're kind of just counting down, waiting. Actually, that's game's round start.
Mm.
And are
But
those set telling what's state the players are in? Because in each of those they can do different things. So once it
yeah,
switches states, then the players are all switched to the correct.
basically, yeah. So we use those, for example, for like listening to events. Let's say in Spleef
Mm-hmm.
on block break. Obviously, when the event state is not gameplay, you don't want to do anything because you should not be able to break the floor when the
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
game has not started yet. So
Yeah.
that's kind of determining the game state, the state the game is in, and just overall the event is in.
And then I guess a bigger question for talking about development: where did you start with such a big project of like recoding the entire event?
Obviously, the main part was to figure out the framework stuff and what the games need from the framework. Will just flow into each other, work. So that was a big part when starting out, definitely with game framework. Another crucial part was timer framework, which handles all the timing.
Mhm.
It handles all the timing and stuff.
Yeah, because Minecraft doesn't actually have a built-in timer. That's all made. And that's not, I mean, it seems basic to us that an event needs a timer, but that has to always be implemented like by the people making it. It's not a thing you just turn on timer.
Oh yeah.
And actually, for script, I know like if I'm writing a Java plugin, I use like like a runnable, where it's just kind of like repeating every tick to start counting a timer. Does script have another implementation for counting, like or doing running things over a course of time?
Well, you could just write a while loop, or we
Hmm.
script has these interesting periodical events, which is basically like every 1 second do this, every one
Mm.
tick do this.
That's helpful. Yeah.
So we use that for timer. We use the tick one
Hmm.
because so previously we used every second one, but obviously that happens every second. And if you start a timer between 1 and another second, you'll basically have to wait like half a second until another second. So we switched to every tick. Now we basically every tick count to 20. And then when certain availability reaches 20, it resets back to 0. And does timer ticket.
So like very accurate timing, because
So it's accurate,
for
yeah.
viewers who don't, our listeners who don't know, Minecraft has 20 ticks in a second. Basically, it means that the game updates, or I should say, the server updates 20 times a second. You can have a frames per second higher than that. Your game could be rendering faster than that, but the server will only react 20 ticks per second. I think we've talked about in the past on the podcast that like compared to other games, this is very slow. Like a good example is I think Valorant, it has like 120.
25.
A lot of competitive games like Rocket League, similar amount. Most first person shooters and other competitive games have much higher ones. And it's kind of standard to at least have like 60.
And you can see the new CSGO, I don't know if you saw it, but has subticks, which basically ignore shooting and movement, or just sent immediately to the server instead of waiting for the next tick, which is real accurate.
Crazy.
Yeah, Minecraft's kind of behind, but it's not terrible.
Speaking of, running into problems like that, there's a lot of debugging that goes into, when you're developing things. And it's easy to debug when you have like a bunch of testers there and they're all figuring out what's wrong. But how are you testing code by yourself to ensure that, it's working or it's doing what you want it to do?
Well, most games we have written, generally we have written the framework in mind, so it works with any amount of players, really. So we can start games, play games in like 1 person, 2 people, 4 people. So, you can always just start the game by yourself when you're alone. Or what I do is just have alt, or when other admins are on, or staff team, I just ask them if they could do something, because they're usually all in VC. Anyway, yeah. And then the other part is we have I made that recently, we have automated tests, automated flaky tests, which are basically these small tests that make sure they're not really for like general testing and finding bugs, but it's more of a, when you change it, let's say the timer code, it makes sure that you didn't screw anything else elsewhere over.
So it's like unit testing, kind of.
Unit testing, yeah, basically. So like example is test start, it starts the timer with 1 minute 20, and then waits 10 seconds, checks if the timer is 1 minute 10. If so, it passes. And it basically does that to everything related to time. It tests everything related to the timer.
Just ensuring that it works without having to get, 40 some people together to see if it works.
Yeah.
This next question kind of put two questions together, which is like, obviously you like want to plan out how long it's going to take to, fix a bug or implement something new, but you can't always be 100% sure how long something's going to take. So how do you kind of manage that timeline? And how do you manage when you've, run into a wall of not being able to, find the answer to the problem as fast as you thought you could?
I don't sleep. No. Yeah, when stuff like that happens, don't really know. Usually it doesn't take too long, but we had this with kind of the generation of Sky Zone and Block Wars, where that took like way longer than we thought. We kind of pushed it off for 1 more season. If you don't know, Sky Zone was supposed to be added in Block Wars 15? Yeah, 15. But was added in 16, or Block Wars 1. Because the generation just was too hard. If you don't know, Sky Zone maps are randomly generated from pool of assets every time it's played.
It gets a certain layout, but then like the actual buildings and stuff that are on each of the islands.
It's like
randomized chests and
randomized,
stuff,
and the chests as well.
Chests as well, yeah.
So it sounds like, you do your best to like set a timeline that makes sense, but if it doesn't work out, you end up pushing back to give yourself more time for it.
It depends, yeah. It depends how close to the event it is, I guess. If it's like deadline on the start of the cycle, usually still gets done.
Yeah.
Even just a little bit later.
More.
Yeah.
I mean, like we've gone over this before on the podcast, the idea that like when you have trying to create deadlines, like it's kind of okay to push them back for the sake of like testing and making sure something works correctly. Because like if you release something like a few months later, but it's really good, people are going to be much happier than if you released it earlier and it just kind of was broken and did not work.
Yeah, 100%.
So because definitely for Skyzone, like I remember, like there's a lot of testing went into also making sure that it was a balanced game, or at least as balanced as it could be.
Yeah.
It's the child that keeps throwing tantrums for whatever reason and having issues.
The game or the players?
Yes.
Always.
Yes.
It's always been issues that like never appeared in testing, which is the funny part.
And then, Gilan, I think this is something you have to ask because I don't understand what this means, which is the idea of development versus production.
There's a development server for Block Wars, and there's like an actual like production server. There's two different servers.
Gasp.
And also I'm pretty sure there's two different code base, or at least branches probably. So like why do you do that? Why do you have different code for production and development? Why would you ever do that, Maya?
Well, usually you separate dev and production, and this is basically just normal in the development sphere, I guess. You always want to separate your, because you don't want to be fixing bugs and stuff on production while users are using it. But specifically in Block Wars, so we code on the development server and we test on the development server, and then when it's event time, we push basically all the changes from development server to the production server. It is a Docker container, Docker image, so it's like 100% identical. There isn't like anything that can be like broken by having multiple servers or different server.
When you talk about pushing stuff, are you pushing code builds like the worlds themselves, like every so it's like you basically are copying and pasting the server file at that point.
Yeah, and we have very fast node, very fast server node provided by Inkton. And it takes like 20 seconds to copy the entire.
But kind of sponsored.
Kind of sponsored.
It takes like 20 seconds to copy the entire server over.
Why is it beneficial to separate, your dev code from your production code on two different servers?
So in our case, we obviously run two events. We are on Block Wars, which is the creator event, and Block Wars Origins, which is still the friend event. Obviously, Origins is week after Block Wars. In that week time, we would like to already start working on the next season. So if it was everything in the same server as it was before, we didn't always have dev prod server. We would have to wait. We would have to basically wait until Origins is over to start working. While now, before the main event, before the creator event, we push to production, and the event gets played there. And unless there's like some major bugs, nothing gets changed, and basically the event stays on the production server while we work on the next season on the dev server. And then a week later, the event gets played again in Origins on the production server.
So it's just about ensuring there's like essentially like a backup, but it's not the backup, it's the actual one. Whereas the dev server is the space to, start working on the next thing, and you're holding the event static on the production server so it can be played a second time.
Yes.
Well, that's a fair bit about Block Wars. There's tons more we could obviously talk about that. Maybe we'll have to do a round 2 where you come back, Maya, with questions from people that they have about how Block Wars works. But in the meantime, we're gonna maybe
someone else could come on.
Maybe Aso or
Aso, Jordan. I don't know.
Aso, Jordan, Bert. We got some other people that could talk about it too.
People.
But a couple more questions though, just about your experience, Maya. How did you get into programming in general, and then how'd that lead to Minecraft mods and plugins?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know really. There was a PlayStation 2 game when I was small. PlayStation 2 used to be the hit.
It was.
Video
I was
game
there.
console. Yeah, I still have my PS2, but there was a game that was something like Scratch, if you know Scratch, or maybe more of something like Dreams. I don't remember the name of it, but it was basically there's like simple drag and drop stuff. You could make your own little quick game it wasn't anything good because obviously PlayStation 2, but that kind of got me into creating stuff generally. Then when I was older, I tried a bunch of these games where you can drag drop stuff, create loops and stuff that do something on my phone. They're all kind of not good because cannot really pack game engine into Android app, but
That's how it starts, though.
yeah, how it starts. And then I got my first PC, and obviously I was a huge Minecraft fan already, and like new command blocks and stuff because I played Pocket Edition. And that's, I guess, where a lot of people's, like generally around the community that are devs, a lot of people come from is just command blocks where they started out. Yeah, I guess I started out with command blocks. I didn't really play Minecraft for like survival or Hypixel or anything really. I was just creating stuff, elevators and stuff. I know back then when Nuxku released first and first, the original version, I was real interested how the elevators work, and I was recreating them myself. Yeah, but then that kind of went into servers, right? Because there was this boom at that time where everyone was making their own like server and stuff. So obviously I had to try that as well. And I was using just normal plugins from like downloaded plugins and just configuring them for like the first few months, but then found script. I was like, oh, this is cool. I can like make basically a plugin, but not really. So I was learning script and stuff. And yeah, I used that for a long time, like a year maybe. And then I thought I could learn like Java, Kotlin, and just generally get more into programming. This is also around time where computer classes, ICT classes, we got in school. So learn generally more about computers. I mean, I already knew like a lot, but they introduced like to the concepts of websites and how they're written there. I got interested in that, so hyper fixated on HTML and CSS and JavaScript for a while. Yeah, I guess they're mainly from JavaScript. I learned I was like, yeah, I want to learn this more. Oh, this is cool. I like creating stuff. So I kind of just went on learning programming in general.
And how'd that lead to, being the lead developer of Block Wars?
So MCC, I was a fan back then. Back then, there was this thing called Nuxku Game Show, which I watched. So I knew Nuxku like way before MCC. That was a really cool thing for me. So obviously I watched all the admin's perspective. The first one, where Noxide had Spotify music on playing for half of the stream, by the way.
Classic
yeah.
Noxide moment.
Yeah. So that's kind of how I got introduced to Minecraft events, MCC. Actually, no. It was Minecraft Monday.
The classic.
Forgot about that.
I always forget about Minecraft Monday.
Yeah, so that I got introduced to Minecraft events by that. And then I was interested in making my own event, but never really did anything until like MCC came around. When MCC came around, there was this. Me and basically a bunch of my chick friends realized like, oh, there's a gap in the market for like Minecraft events and stuff in the Czech Minecraft space. So we made a project called Eventverse where we basically, it wasn't like Minecraft event, but it was more. How would I describe it? It was a really unique concept because it would be more of we obviously made hub and like a lot of games. We made like 8-9 games, but if would like twice a week we would run event, which would be obviously only one game, and then just give some prizes. So it'd be like parkour, super spleef or something. Yeah. We did that for a while. We averaged like 100 players.
Nice.
Per event, but then I kind of got hit by depression and stuff and left that project. And now they've evolved into, Clash of Czechoslovakia is like basically the MCC of Czech. There's all the big creators playing in there. Which is cool.
Nice.
So that's how I got more into events and stuff. And obviously, a lot of experience can come from that.
Mhm.
And then after that, I went on. I was watching this streamer called Inters on Twitch, right? He was doing this Dragon Race tournament for his own little community, which, wasn't anything good. It was just him typing commands to do stuff.
Yeah.
But I basically came around, and I really was interested in that project because I thought it was a really cool concept for like just events in general. So I was like, hey, I can code and I can help with stuff. So we got together and made Dragon Race better, full on event, I guess. Then ASO came around. ASO is the other developer that works for Blockworks. Yes, ASO came around and we improved Dragon Race a bunch. We hosted 4 seasons. And then at some point, I saw Blockworks testing applications, and I didn't. I watched like some Blockworks before, but not really. I thought it was interesting, so I could join testing, maybe help test the event. So, yeah, I joined testing and I got in. Yeah, and I was like Blockworks Origins 8, I think, around 8. So it was 8, we tested 8, 9, and then All Stars. And then after All Stars, I remember they were like in the Blockworks server. Back then it wasn't public, it was just players and testers, but they sent out the little forum asking for some feedback. And that was like a question. If you could help Blockworks, how would you, So I was like, this is kind of cool. I can code. I could help with coding and stuff. And then I got DM from Lizard being like, hey, we want you on our team. So that's how I got into Blockworks. Long story, but interesting one, I think.
That makes sense. And then we're gonna start wrapping up here with this last question. If you're somebody listening to this and want to, start learning how to make Minecraft plugins or mods or, anything development wise for Minecraft, where would they start?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Definitely, if you want to start, I would suggest just first things, if you want to start with like Java, Kotlin, maybe even script, look up some basic programming in general stuff. Like, so you understand like methods, types, stuff like that. There's surely, if you look up like Java tutorial for beginners, something like that, you can find something. And then once you know some very basic stuff, you can probably just, again, YouTube tutorials, just look up how to make a plugin and start from there.
Yeah, I know a good channel is the Source Code. They have like 300 like Minecraft plugin related ones, and they have ones that have been updated throughout the year, so you can find ones that are new versions. A lot of times, if you look at a specific question, we're like, okay, I want, if you're looking at like Hypixel and you're like, oh, they have these like NPCs, like how do I do that? I think they have a video for like how you can do that. If you're looking at like, oh, I want to be able to like open up a menu when someone clicks on item, they have a thing that shows you how to do that. And they're very simple because it's just like a run through the code. They explain it. It's like only a few files, and then you can just kind of add that to your code base. And it's a great way to learn. And I would encourage people to like, while you're watching that, don't just copy and paste the code over, but kind of like listen to what they're explaining. Because eventually, you want to reach this point where you don't have to look up those things anymore. You just kind of like can formulate your own way to do it. And it might not be the best way to do it if you formulate yourself, but like at least you are learning it and you're figuring this stuff out.
The more you use it, the more you basically the more you use it, the more you learn about parts of code bases.
And I would encourage people, even if you're looking at something, you're like, okay, I just kind of want to learn script so I can make something quick and easy. That's very understandable. But I would encourage people to try to go learn Java or Kotlin and try to make plugins, because those are both languages that, even if you're making this for fun, those are languages that can get you a job later in life. If you if you want to also look into doing that, that's the kind of thing where if you understand, if you learn one program, like if you learn, there's a reason that like most colleges teach Java, because after you learn Java, you can start learning other languages too, because a lot of them share a lot of concepts from Java. So I would encourage people to kind of learn a language, because it'll make all the other programming languages much easier, and you just kind of start learning programming concepts. And that could
Yeah.
help you later in life.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Java is a very good starting point because there's a lot of programming languages similar to Java.
Mm-hmm.
Kotlin, the .NET, C#, right?
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like that.
And it's also one of those that I think it's very approachable. It's not like C++ where you're just kind of like thrown in. You have to figure all this like low level like memory management and stuff. You can kind of make a lot of mistakes in Java, and you don't really it doesn't affect you. Like you can kind of do things in the wrong way, and it'll still work, which is really nice for beginners because it doesn't mean you won't be getting crashes all the time.
Yeah, you don't have to handle like memory stuff yourself.
Mm-hmm.
The garbage collection, stuff like that.
Yeah.
All right. But that is where we're going to wrap it up. Maya, thank you for joining us for this podcast.
Thank you for having me on.
Gilan will probably try to have another guest for next week if I can arrange it for us. So it might be Donut or Wolfie or maybe Aso if we got questions from this one about more development things. But we will catch you all next time. Bye.
Bye.